Asher Roth, welcome back to Foundation Radio, sir. Great to see you. How are we doing today?
It's good, man. I feel nice. I mean, specifically with the weather, man. We're lucking out. This little early fall weather is moving in, so I'm cozy.
Yeah, you know what? It's nice out here in Pittsburgh. I'm only going to be here for another couple of days, which is fantastic. I'll be back in Philadelphia probably by the 15th or the 16th. But man, I can't complain out here right now. But I know you guys got hammered pretty hard out there a couple days ago, right? Did you have any issues?
Yeah, we did. It was pretty epic. No, we're obviously in North Philly a little bit or so away from the Schuylkill, et cetera. So, but the footage is crazy. I didn't head down that way, obviously, because that probably would have put me in a little bit of a predicament.
Yeah,
so I stayed out of the mix a little bit, but the footage is crazy. I mean, a lot of the stuff, same, where my family's from, we're not too far from the Delaware River and Yardley area, the canal path that gets flooded often. Well, not often, but when situations like this happen. So yeah, people had some issues. So, safety first, obviously.
Yeah, I've been following on Twitter, watching people swim in the 676 canal, and I'm just like, of course, like first of all, it's like uniquely Philadelphia, right? Like only us in Philly would do shit like that. But also too, I'm like, God, that's disgusting. It's disgusting. Why would you do something so terrible? I try to explain to people out here how gnarly that is. It's just horrible. But
just a bunch of river goop.
Oh my God, man. It's just like I start to gag when I think about it. But I really appreciate you stopping by, man, and chatting about the new record. And I want to talk to you a little bit. But I guess the first place to start would be, Discord.
Yeah.
Was something that we actually started together back in the beginning of the pandemic. You and I were supposed to meet for our second interview together, our second conversation. And then obviously the world shut down. During that time, I discovered this app called Discord, which my team and I had been recording with, and then I introduced that to you for our conversation. Mm-hmm. And then what led you to start to use that more? Like what piqued your interest about the app itself?
So I think this happens a lot in social media and tech introduction, right? Someone talks about it maybe in the early going. It's not like the time and place. Then it pops up again, and then it pops up again. I remember it happening with Twitter too. I didn't really, and some people still don't understand Twitter. My dad, for instance, my buddy, a few of my buddies are just like, I don't get it. I'll never have it. And it's not important to me. And even for me, initially, it was just like, okay, a text message, whatever. But Discord, I remember, you kind of mentioning it and we were able to do a conversation over, but I still didn't really understand what it was. And then a couple other conversations of friends being like, what about Discord? It was always, what about Discord? And I don't really know if there's a specific instance, but it's kind of like my creative process in general. It's just kind of like this like flash of inspiration, and then you jump all the way in. And so I think the initial kind of jump in was maybe around the conversation around fantasy football and betting and sports betting. And then, the Twitch incorporation and all this stuff. And my buddy just wanted me to play games and really just, tinkering with this more digital era technology rather than just analog text-based stuff, video components and all of these things. And, after our conversation around Discord and seeing how clear the audio was from our initial discussion on Foundation Radio, it just led to a little bit more tinkering. And ultimately I was able to find the way that I wanted to use it. And obviously there's different ways for people to use their own technology. But for me, I was like, this is how I want to use it. This makes sense to me. And it ultimately became a huge tool for us to create an album.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I'm not sure I've ever really heard of a situation like this before. And I guess for me too, like Discord kind of was like, it was bred from necessity. Mm-hmm. We're doing our show, we're recording together, and then all of a sudden we can't be around each other anymore. It's like, well, how are we going to continue to produce content in a meaningful way where we can all be together? And you're right, Discord allowed us to have that flexibility, not just with the audio portion, but video. And it also became this sort of like, it had like its own tentacles, you know, like it just started to
Sure.
spread out and we were able to do all these different things, you know, media wise. But I remember you sending me a message on Discord asking me about some different features that were going. And then it felt like almost overnight, the retro hash server kind of like exploded, right? Like where was, I'd love to talk a little bit more about that aspect of this. And then before we get into the album, like what was your first like tinkering with it? And then how fast did it grow from like the initial genesis of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I work, right? In these waves of inspiration. And so you can see it sometimes with my output. I know that some people would be bummed out with me because it would take some time for me to put things out for various different reasons. But a lot of the time I have to work with what's going on. So same thing with this tech was when I did jump in with Discord, I didn't want to overthink it. I didn't want to think about what could go wrong. And so even that initial tweet that I sent out was, hey, excuse me, January 16th, 2001. Hey, y'all, want to create this album with fan friend submissions. You know, if you're interested, guest verses as well. Let's start the conversation. And that's kind of what it was just like, this server is as much mine as it is a lot of the other people that helped start it. And even starting the conversation around Discord and having a Discord link, there was a handful of people that hit me up and were like, yo, this is so cool. I'm so happy you're doing this. I've been on Discord since 2018. Like, if you need any help, let me know. And so I think that's what also helped move it fast was that there was a group of people working together towards a common goal. And so a lot of fun. Obviously, Discord is kind of new to the mainstream as well. I mean, even if you see their commercials with Danny DeVito, you know, they're explaining to Danny DeVito, imagine a place. And they're like, so do you get it yet? And he's just like, no. And which I think is great because that's kind of what it is. But it's just organized. For me, obviously, it's a lot for a lot of people. But for me, everything that I have going on in my brain, I'm allowed to just put that over there on the left-hand side. And I can compartmentalize and we just zap into these different rooms and talk about it, whether it's betting on Irish horses or whether we're creating an album. It's all in one place. And so, yeah, I think the reason why it kind of happened overnight was because there was a lot of other people invested in the idea of helping bring it to life.
Yeah, and it's incredible. You've created quite a community there. I mean, the different sections and subsections that are inside of that Discord server it's incredible. Like I don't even know if I have enough time to flip through as much as I'd like to, but I know there's just so much going on in there, and it's really cool to see that you've created like I said, the best way to call it is like a community of people, right? Like-minded folks who are like us, who want to talk about different things and have a bunch of different interests, but I'm not sure if I can recall another record that is sort of like almost, I don't want to say crowdsourced, but it was like a community project, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about the idea. When did you first have the idea to do like Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 as a like crowdsourced or group project? Was that something that you had initially with the idea of Discord, or was that something that just kind of came organically as this became more of a reality?
It was an organic idea for sure. And as you know, our reality and our new reality started to seep in. So, you know, I guess Greenhouse Effect Volume 2, maybe that was 2014. And so I knew after that I wanted to, I wanted to create a Greenhouse Effect Volume 3, just as far as trilogies go, you know, and who knows where it'll go from here. But it always felt like 1 and 2, there needed to be a third, right?
Right.
And you know, as life goes on and different things happen, and, you know, I moved back to Philadelphia and all of these things were going on just in real life, it was definitely a timing thing. So I knew that I had reached a space in my world. Obviously, I come into the music industry and streaming isn't even a thing.
Right.
And now today's music industry, it's all streaming. And so just the adaptation as far as the mixtape is concerned, where the mixtape fits into, you know, the conversation, right? And so me rapping over industry beats for basically promotional use only, not really sure where that fit into. It would have just been me styling and letting people know that I can rap, which is like, okay, you know, which is fun, don't get me wrong, you know,
right.
You go to the gym basically. But ultimately, you know, I wanted to figure out a way to make Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 a little bit more productive. And I think, you know, it was obviously January with the tweet as a receipt. But a little bit before that, probably around December, before I just dove right in, was like, I think this could be really cool if we got other people involved. And it really stems to the fact that there's just so much talent out there, man.
Yeah.
There's so many artists and producers, specifically right now. I think the music business is kind of like anyone can do it, for better or for worse, but it has allowed a lot of people the technology and the tools to create at home. And I wanted to empower that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not really an album. It's not so much a mixtape. It is like this social studies project of collaborating with people from really all over the world. I mean, the narrator's from Ireland. One of the first artists we hear, he's living in Montreal, Buffalo, Boston, Salt Lake City. Somebody's from St. Louis, living in Dallas. And to your point early on about Discord and the technology of allowing us all to connect in one place, we were able to do that. And so, yeah, man, I mean, the idea kind of just spurned from what was going on, like what was happening. Here are all these moving pieces happening in the world right now. Here's some technology available to you. Okay, let's use this and let's try this. And I'm telling you, just like almost all the streams fell on holidays. During the listening session, during the police element, this cop car goes whizzing by during the listening party. And everyone's like, did you plan that? I'm like, no. But it was just one of those things where this was just such a special project, top to bottom. After the listening party, to me, that was really all that mattered. This isn't about critical review. It's not about Billboard placements, having a single. I don't even think there's a standalone track on this record. It's not like here's the single.
Right.
So it's unconventional in so many ways, so unique, so fun. And, you know, as I get older, obviously, and you're a parent, like, you know, this, like your joy, some of your happiest moments are your children's or other people's joy.
Right.
And so for me, that was a big growth moment for me. And this project was just, this project brought me so much joy because it brought other people joy. And that's the punctuation on this project. It's not something that I'm like, I need to sell this and do this and get this Billboard slot. And I'm just happy as a clam, bro.
And you know what? I can tell, Asher, when you're talking about it, I can see the happiness and I can see the excitement about the project. And I wanted to kind of touch upon a couple of things that you had said, too, as far as like the availability of musicians and creators and collaborators. I know we've sort of talked about that before, but I think back when you were saying that, I was thinking back to the time when you became, you know, when you first initially got signed, right? And how that happened for you. And it was a MySpace thing. And it just sort of happened. It sort of snowballed on top of itself. And not to say that you didn't work hard, but you know what I mean? Like all the pieces sort of fit together and like everything just clicked. Now you can go on SoundCloud and your song could play after a Kanye West record and all of a sudden you're getting 6 or 7 record deals, you know, and it's an incredible sort of explosion of creativity and of the availability of people. And that's not to say that everything is great, but most of it is pretty good. And how many of these folks may not have had the ability to go onto MySpace or even back in the 90s, have a connection with somebody to drop a tape to a DJ, you know? I mean, what if Big was not in the same room as, you know, Puffy didn't find him on the street corner, you know, or Pun didn't give that tape to Joe. It's an incredible experience, and to watch this sort of grow and evolve, it's been really exciting. I really enjoyed listening to the record. It feels a lot like it's a story, right? Like it's a narrative. It's a concept to it. And I wanted to sort of pull that apart a little bit. Did you, when you were collecting all of this information and all the verses and all the beats, did you have an idea of where you wanted it to go? Or was it, again, more of a creative collaborative where it's all right, let's tell this story instead of just doing a bunch of rap records together?
I did not have any, expectations really, or even narrative going into it. So I started out, I knew that, like, you know, I think we had removed it by now, but the info was about a dystopian future.
Right.
And a lot of the inspiration going into it once the inspiration hit was like Prince Paul, Prince Among Thieves, and Deltron 3030. And some of these projects that had characters and narratives. But I'm not sure how much of my audience was familiar with that stuff. So I strayed away from the references for a little bit because I noticed that maybe 1 or 2 weeks that I did references, the outcome were just sounded like the references, you know? And so it was much more fun to leave it up to the producers and the artist's imagination. But it wasn't until about week 10 when I started to lean into this like professor at the University of College teaching horticulture. That didn't happen until like, 10 weeks in. But once that happened, everything just started to click. And so it kind of went chronological after that. But it took about 7 or 8 weeks of just tossing ideas out there. Some of them that didn't even make it. I mean, week 1 didn't make it. I mean, probably some of the early weeks didn't make it, week 3, week 4, because again, we're kind of just feeling each other out, getting in a rhythm, seeing how it's going to work. But, it was 20 weeks. And I think that like from week 7 to week, 20 was just a well-oiled machine at that point. And that's a testament to the producers and the creativity and the talent pool, and also just the tools that were available to us with Discord as far as communication is concerned. Being able to jump on a voice channel with some of these guys and walk through the script and give them their roles, and here's your character and here's how we're going to play it. And it was directing in a way, but for the most part, I have to give a lot of credit to the artists. I never had to go back on some of these guys and what they wrote and said, I like this, can you do this again? Everybody nailed it. And so It was just a very special project all the way around, but we completely made it up as we went along.
That's just amazing, man. Honestly, I'm looking at the track list right now. I had a chance to spin it yesterday and I spun it again. I'm a big story guy. Like I love hearing a narrative in music. I love the idea of having that as a long-term story. But tell me more about the submission process, because it looks like there's a handful of guys that you worked with here who were guest features on the record. But as far as like the instrumentals and thing, I know friend of the show, Rob Devious, was on there as well and doing the intro. But tell me a little bit more about some of the other folks that you worked with. What was the submission process like? Was it an overwhelming experience, or were you able to, once you sort of had the idea in your head around week 7, it's like, okay, well now I know what the sound I'm looking for is?
A little bit of both. So I think, for those that aren't familiar with the structure of it, it was Wednesdays we would release acapellas, and then Sundays you would drop it in a submission channel. And so then after 2 hours, I guess from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., then that submission channel would lock. And then at 1 o'clock, we'd go on Twitch and go through it all together. Now, what's really cool is that, and also just the server in general, is we have about maybe between 800 to 1,000 members. So there's kind of people just that are there. And genuinely active and working, we have about 25 producers, I would say. And so that's just enough. That's about like a 2-hour stream to go through everybody's, give them genuine feedback, and to your point, overwhelming. I mean, if you're getting 50, 100 submissions, that's a completely different beast. So it was actually the perfect amount of submissions and the perfect amount of producers for me to give them one-on-one feedback on what I was looking for. And I think over time, people started to pick up on what was happening. But even still, we were so shocked about how it turned out. Like as far as sonically, it's still pretty cohesive, being a project that was created by 12 different producers. But even though Rob made it on there, I mean, Rob just got in on the fun, right? So like for those who don't know, Rob and I did Flowers on the Weekend together, a collaborative project, and I was early on before all the pandemic and stuff. I love going over to the shed and recording. And so some of the early ideas I was recording at Rob's just to have like, somebody record me rather than recording myself. I enjoy the studio. I enjoy being around people. The recording process in your room can be rather lonely. But with that being said, Rob was just like, this is tight. And he would give his own submissions. So democratic process as it got, he earned that one. He won that one. That was not given. He just had a great submission to kick off the tape. But with that being said, it's like, I don't think anybody really was like, oh, this is the sound that we're going for. And even with me, again, I left the references at the door. I was just like, we're not going to do references anymore. Just do what is in, what you're feeling. And, we'd go through and I started to realize there's something here, because there was great like lo-fi submissions, there was great stuff that's just like, real boom bap, but I could tell that I wanted this to be a little bit of a brighter album. Right. I wanted it to be something that was fun and accessible. Like, I've been calling it a PG-13 movie for, the past 2 months, because that's what it feels like. It's not like this highbrow, inaccessible, like, references that people can't even catch and whatever it may be. It's something that like, I think a 13-year-old could listen to and say, this is cool. I get it. I understand what's going on here. And I wanted it to be that way. I wanted it to be something that's fun to be a part of and fun to listen to.
Well, you called it a rap opera, which I thought, as listening to it and listening to it back again, I absolutely thought the same thing. I mean, really, the story kind of it evolves around you as the professor at the University of College with your students in a horticultural class, and you teach them how to grow pot. And then in the middle of the record, this police officer shows up, and it's someone who couldn't grow. And it's like this. It's almost like like a cops and robbers tale where he's like, I'm going to come back and exact vengeance on this guy. And it was really cool, man. And listening to the, you talked at what was it? The guy at the end. You can't smoke this. If someone steals it, you can't smoke it because then it's a magical world. Like, dude, it's like there's so many different levels to it, and I just enjoyed it so much. And the more I listened to it, and the more I was able to like sort of connect with it, it just became a really genuinely interesting and exciting listen. And I agree. I think anybody who, even if they're not fans necessarily of hip hop or maybe, some of your other music or anybody else's music, you can pick up this record and listen to it and go, wow, this is a really cool story. And that was my takeaway from it, is that it was very much so a very fun, imaginative story. What's been some of the feedback that you've gotten so far on the record from the people that you created it with?
Oh, the people that I created it with, I mean, they're so happy and so pleased, and just to be a part of a process where there's like, some level of professional rollout. This is a new experience for a lot of them who have ambitions to, create in a professional manner. I mean, to your point earlier about like the happenstance chances of proximity that allow somebody the opportunity, whether it be Big Pun and Fat Joe or Puffy and Big, that allow you to kind of start moving along. That doesn't happen to everybody. That I attribute a lot of my success, and I think a lot of people would attribute their success to luck. It's just like good graces. And so, not everybody has the opportunity to put things out with somebody that might have done this in a professional fashion before. And so, to be able to be in a position to, show some people around and take them through the process, teaching these kids about publishing splits, teaching them about, mechanical royalties and, different like contractual language that they should be aware of. Like all that stuff is so valuable as you go forward, because a lot of these kids, I would say, some of them are my age, some of them a little bit younger, some are just starting out in their 20s. I didn't have anybody teaching me about publishing. I didn't have anybody explaining to me mechanical royalties and how it works and what happens when you take money. None of those conversations were like, here's what this is. Do you still want to do this? It just kind of happened super fast. And so, artist development is really important to me. And I think that the feedback from these other artists and these producers is they're very, very thankful for that. They're very thankful for having somebody that's just like patient with them. And I think it's because a lot of my experiences as well, I wish that there was somebody that was kind of patient with me. And so it's just been a beautiful, beautiful experience from top to bottom, very rewarding, fulfilling for so many other reasons than, top of the charts and stream numbers. So the feedback, super positive project. Obviously, not all of my listeners, I think, especially if depending on how they get it, if they don't understand that this was a social studies project, collaborative with people who might not go on to be professional musicians, et cetera, and it came out this way, they might be like, what the heck is this? I don't understand this at all, I guess. But for the most part, I think we were able to control the narrative enough to let people know how this record was made, which to me is the most important part about the record.
Absolutely. And I wanted to kind of touch back about the, what you were saying about teaching some of these younger guys. And I know, like I said, we talked about this a little bit offline before sometime. And, you made a mention on the album. It was like a quick phrase. You were like, I'm almost 40. And I stopped. I went, holy shit, I'm 36 this year. Yeah. I didn't even you have those moments of clarity and you're like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm this old. And yeah. I mean, we're kind of like in some sense, we're the elder statesmen in some regards. You've done this already. You've been at the top of the charts. You've done the indie stuff. You've been with Def. You've done everything. And to be able to sort of impart this knowledge on folks that maybe wouldn't have had the ability to have this initially, how does that make you feel to be able to take someone and say, hey, listen, this is how it works. This is what you need to look out for. Because I know we both know guys who have got caught up in stuff like that where they don't necessarily read the fine print or they don't understand the complexities of how a record contract works. I know a guy who lost his rap name, his moniker because of a contract that he signed and he wasn't able to use it afterwards. And sure. How did it make you feel sort of as the quote unquote elder statesman now to be able to walk people through in the way that you would have wanted to?
It's a gnarly business, man. I mean, some would say it's not even a business, you know? So for me, it just feels like a responsibility. It feels like what you're supposed to be doing, especially as you get older. And like, you know, a pillar of hip hop is knowledge of self. And, you know, keeping that, that's important to me, you know, keeping that around, keeping those conversations going about how important it is to take care of yourself, take care of those around you, take care of your community. You know, it just feels like a responsibility. And again, you know, in the creation of Greenhouse Effect Volume 3, there wasn't really any inspiration around, let me rap over familiar beats about how great I am. You know,
Right.
it just didn't feel like that was the most productive thing to do. Where I am in my life, and, you know, just mentally, emotionally, physically, it just felt like the only thing to do was start reaching out to other people, start passing along, sharing some of my stories, sharing my experiences. You know, a lot of us, when we talk about, you know, wisdom and knowledge and things of that nature, is learning from other people's mistakes. And so like, I'm very pleased with where I am in my career as far as what I represent. Now, obviously, perspective is a real thing, but to people who know who I am, are semi interested in where this all went for the last 10 to 12 years, I feel like I've been honest with myself and stayed true to what my belly has been saying. And I think ultimately, the scene looks at me and says, well, he's not lying, right? And so with that being said, it puts me in a space where I can talk to people younger than I am, whoever it may be, and at least they're gonna know that I'm not lying to them, you know? And so it's been nice to have a voice that, you know, I would hope has some integrity behind it, and people believe me when I speak and believe me when I tell them these things, that I'm not trying to manipulate them or steer them wrong. They trust me. I think that relationship, just not only with your audience, but with the people in your life, you know, your whether it be your partner or your parents or your siblings or whoever it may be, you know, being honest with yourself, being honest with them is such an important part to communication and a relationship. And I feel like I have that with my audience. And that's just, to me, it's just being responsible, you know, for the words that come out of your mouth.
Yeah, and I know that's a topic we talk about often is your authenticity. I think that's something that early on, you know, even from Asleep at the Bread Aisle, I think that was something that was a very clear with you, a very clear line. Like, no, I want to be myself. I want to be this authentic individual, and I want to speak from a place not just of knowledge but of truth. And I think you've really been able to craft that over the course of the years, and I think that really shines not just in this project, but also in Flowers on the Weekend and Retro Hash and everything else you've produced over the past 10 years. I mean, it's really been incredible to see someone take an opportunity and turn it into their life's mission and their life's goal, live out that reality. And I'm always impressed when I talk to you, man. Like, it's just incredible to see that happen in real time for you. And I'm just excited to talk about anything you have going on. But I do want to I want to give a little bit of love to the folks that have worked on the record, about Marcus Smith and some of the other folks that gave verses for this record. Tell me more about the collaborative folks that you rapped with on the record, and then talk about some of the producers that you ended up working with.
So that, I think getting other artists and other rappers involved was the hardest part, you know, only because it's not that like rap is competitive, but also it's like, you know, a guilty by association, right? So if you're on a track and you're rapping with somebody who maybe is not up to par, or maybe doing it for the wrong reasons or whatever it may be, but if you put your arm around that person, you know, guilty by association. So for me, it was important that these other artists, you know, I wasn't just doing them a favor or giving them a handout. They had to really earn it. And so Marcus, Cody Will, Bluff, A to Z, Charlie, he was somebody that really, really impressed me. And just like people who took the role, the mission, because these are kind of challenges that we put in Discord, trying to get other artists involved without just being like, yo, here's a beat, rap, put a verse on it. Once we had the narrative, it was like, okay, I need somebody who is impatient and doesn't want to grow pot and is all about like consumerism and buying things and instant gratification, all of those things. And when I put that challenge out, Marcus sent his verse back in like 2 hours and was like, dude, I'm right there, because he was kind of like a caged lion. He was trying to figure out a way, how can I get on this tape as a rapper? Because everything early on was catered, the challenges were kind of catered to producers. And so like him, and then, you know, Charlie would be dropping things off, but he had this nefarious voice, and like he was like kind of like very villainy. And so once I realized that he wanted to be there and he was showing up every week, I had him reach out to Cody, who was kind of doing the same thing. He was calling it his calisthenics, where he was dropping off verses every every 2 or 3 days. And as someone who's observing behavior in a way, you witness that these kids want it, that they're showing up every week. I mean, and those are the people you want to reward in a way. And so I had Charlie reach out to Cody and say, yo, partner with this dude. And I want you guys to, create a scene where you are breaking into the greenhouse to steal it and you guys are plotting it. And like, I'm telling you, man, that verse that they sent back, that was their first take. They just said, here, it didn't take me going on, okay, this is cool, but let's edit this out. Everybody bodied it. Same thing with the challenge with Learn to Grow. Probably my favorite tape, and like a moment in the tape where I realized, whoa, this is pretty special, was I put out a challenge and said, hey, I want you guys to get with other people. This was the first time I was bringing making everybody have to participate and collaborate with other people in the chat, not just me. I was like, I want you guys to reach out to other people in the chat and create a verse around, what your reaction is to this class and learning to grow and all of these things. And Pal, Harbin, and Tracy sent back this just like perfect conversational verse about like Tracy being unsure, Pal recognizing the importance of, nature and a relationship with nature. And once I got that back, I was just like, wow, like this is like meant to be.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we joke about it in the Discord all the time, is that this will never, ever get done again. And even if people do try to do it again, it's not going to be nearly as smooth as a process. Like this really, truly felt like a protected, blessed, guided project that just had angels. It just had somebody looking over it and saying, this is going to work out. And I would love to tell you it was really hard and really difficult and we had to fight through it, but it was so easy. And a lot of that has to do with all those artists and producers that you speak of just stepping up and nailing it.
It really does feel like, it feels a lot like this was just like you guys have all worked together since high school, like it just, there doesn't feel like a misplaced individual or a misplaced verse anywhere. It all sounds so fluid and natural, and it just shines through the record. And I agree. That was going to be one of my next questions was, would there be a possibility for you to do this again in the future? But do you think that it would be possible as far as your creative process, right? Now that you've created something like this and you've done, the major label stuff and you have this experience all over, do you think it would be possible, like your creative future would be similar to this? Or do you think it was just more of a time stamp, lightning in a bottle situation?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, a strength of mine in talking to people is one, being sensitive and an empath. And I think creative people need that, just somebody who's, in their shoes and has been in their shoes. And so my strength in kind of understanding and communicating with artists is there. And so I think that maybe not necessarily a project that would be Asher Roth, but I do think that artist development and helping other artists get their, work on their craft and get their work out there is something that I'm interested in. So I don't know if that comes in the form of a record label where I'm putting out other people's records and helping them put out their other records, or, guiding through it. But, same thing with the business of music is a lot of the A&R positions don't exist anymore. And, that is a position that's like, you're kind of a liaison. You're somebody that can help craft an album, and, you've done it for many years or whatever it may be. So your relationship with not just the business side of things, but your relationship with the artist is a strong one. So there's kind of an element of that in my work right now too, is like, talking to these artists, talking to them about, their work, how they feel, why they're doing it, what brings them joy when they do it, etc. So I think, to your question, I think it's going to steer more towards helping other artists, full on with their career, not so much bringing them into mine.
Now, a quick question as a side note on this as well, because you know me, I love talking about music and the business of anything, wrestling, music, whatever. I
Sure.
love the fine granular details of everything. But why is it that the A&R positions don't exist in the way that we may be used to, right? The idea of someone working with a new artist, or is there a reason? Is that just from the digital explosion, or is that just from a change inside of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak for it because I've never worked in like the hierarchical music business, like reporting to a president who talks to me about it. But it just seems like a cost cutting move of we don't need this anymore. I mean, it seems like the artists, they're kind of teenagers, early 20s. Um, Other people are taking on these more, circular, all encompassing roles. So it just seems like something that got lost. It just feels very familiar to, like political budgets when they cut
Mm-hmm.
programs for like parks and they cut programs for art in general and public education. It's like one of those things where, well, it just doesn't make us any money. It doesn't make sense in the budget. But so much gets lost in regards to the word slipping my mind right now, but the intangible
Right.
importance of roles like that. And it's unfortunate that so many of our decisions these days are guided by finances, and understandably so. It's a gnarly game out here, and we have to tread water. But when you're dealing with art and business, a lot gets lost when you're just trying to like stay out of the red. And I
Yeah.
think some things cost money, and the return on investment is not necessarily going to show up in the stat sheet. It's going to be something that you're like, man, this person helped me win the game, and unless you watch the game, you'll never know that happened.
Right. Now it's been probably over a year now since we chatted, and it
Mhm.
was at the onset of the pandemic. And I'm just curious how you're doing. How have things been for you this past year and a half? How has life changed for Asher Roth? I know that it was a little, Sunflower Philly was still kind of going, and things stopped for a while because of it all. So I'm just curious, how are things going with you, man, overall in general?
I can't complain, man. I mean, I had this amazing outlet with these kids for this, 6 months, 7 months of working on this project, and Sunflower Phillies right out my front door. So, we're able to, have that programming and get outside and not try to do too much. And so I'm extremely fortunate. I'm one of the lucky ones for sure in all of this pandemic with the outlets that I had. And so just taking care of myself, trying to stay active again, like, incorporating tennis back into my routines has been really nice. So if anything, man, I think that I hope that other people have as well. If they're, that world of finances isn't like drowning them, they've taken the time to just recognize what it is that makes them happy and brings them joy, and do some of the work that typically when we're just, working our jobs all the time, we don't really have time to think about. And they're daunting thoughts, it's just like, where's all of this going? But they're kind of necessary meditations. And so I've had the opportunity to just kind of think about where I am, my relationship with Philadelphia as a city. Like we were talking about, we're in our 30s. Like, your priorities change in your 30s, whether they are about for other people or you just start looking ahead a little bit. I think when you're in your 20s, you're just kind of like, whatever, maybe not. I mean, some people obviously very responsible adults might have taken the college experience to just go be a doctor, do 12 years of law school, and then they're our age and they're just like crushing it.
Right.
But for most of us, we're kind of making it up as we go along. There's no real grandiose plan. And so I hope that a lot of people in the pandemic were able to sit down and think about, how has it been for the last 5, 10 years of my life, where I've been kind of going about it with blind ambition, and where do I want to take this thing? And, I've been able to do that, and I'm really happy with the Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 and that
Yeah.
creative process. And I'm really happy with what Sunflower's doing, and just kind of the reputation it's starting to slowly build as far as being a place where someone can come and play their first show.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you guys just had was it the All Love block party, right? Was that just
Yeah.
happened a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, the Olive Block Party is a kind of more of a larger scale event that is a celebration for a lot of different reasons. But for me, my focus is kind of on the little things every day that kind of make the Olive Block Party special. And so, Thursdays, our relationship with Human Robot, and just our relationship with the neighborhood in general, and our
Yeah.
community, and Trash Club, and all of those things. Those are kind of the things that I want to give my love and attention to, because getting people engaged, specifically in the city, getting people a place where they feel like they can come out, because a lot of us, we work all day and we're exhausted, and so Sunflower Philly is kind of a cool spot where you're like, man, I'm exhausted, but let me pop outside real quick. Let me see some people. Let me say hi in a safe environment. I'm still not there yet as far as like bopping into like, sweaty bars and things.
Yeah, no, man.
I'm not there mentally, but
There's
sunflowers are great. Yeah.
there's absolutely no chance of me going to Jake's bar anytime soon. Like we took the kids to a wrestling event here in Pittsburgh, and you like, they don't have the mass things that like Madison Square Garden has, or
Right.
showing your vaccine card. But man, it's like, it's just very frustrating still to go into a place and not everybody's masked, and it's like, all right, I'm good being by myself. But one thing I did want to share with you though, and kind of tying back to what you were saying, was this idea of kind of being like authentic to yourself, and feeling like a successful individual. I know I go to work every single day. I bust my ass at the office. I come home and I'm exhausted. And one of the things that I did, I guess it was really kind of after we talked initially back in May, was the idea you were what you had just mentioned about finding what you love, and being able to like hear what you said. And I jumped sort of like headfirst into my photography, into the film world again, and like really just creating a space for me to feel creative and to feel like I'm being successful. And one of the things I took away, and I take away from you a lot, is the fact that I am a successful guy because I am utilizing my talents, and I'm utilizing my skills in the way that I want to do it. It's not because I want to monetize it. It's not because I want notoriety. It's because I want to do it, and I know I'm good at it, and I know that I'm creating something that's going to be long lasting and something that makes me proud as an individual. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, giving me that perspective in life, because I didn't have it before, and it took like talking to like-minded folks, talking to empathetic, like just controlled individuals who have that outlook and that ability to sort of see past, the forest. And also coupled with the pandemic, being stuck inside and forced to sort of deal with your own demons and deal with your own thoughts and things. And I guess what I'm just trying to say is thank you for giving me that perspective and allowing me to create that space and that avenue for myself.
My pleasure, bro. I'm glad you picked up on that, because obviously that's on your own. And again, this is kind of what we rehashing on what we're saying, is like being able to share my experiences with people and allow me to get to that space, because for a really long time, I was being told what success looked like, and why I'm content. I still have things that I want to do, and I'm still ambitious and certain goals that I have for sure, always keeping those things. But why I'm okay is because my definition of success might be a little bit different than others. And, I think it's important because we have so many influences in our world right now telling us what we should be striving for. So, to hear that you said, hey man, you know what? I've gone into my little like workshop, and I'm starting to figure out what my own definition of success is. And that's like my relationships with my family, whatever it may be, and doing things that I want to be doing for these specific reasons, rather than validation from people you've probably never even met before, most likely.
Right. Yeah. The people on Instagram that don't matter. It's like, it's just thousands of people who could be ingesting my stuff, and I'm just doing it for me. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with me today. Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 is out now. It's everywhere you can find it. Mm-hmm. It's an incredible record. It's a great story. It's a collaborative piece. It's a social studies project, which I love. So what's next? I mean, how much is there? So I know you talked about the boom bap stuff that, just rapping over records to rap. Is there any chance of any of that seeing the light of day from this project? Is there any material that may be sort of materialized from this that you may use down the line?
Sure. I mean, again, very efficient process. So there's not like, we killed the animal and pretty much used everything. But there's a record called All Add Up that is basically kind of a mantra about like all the little things that you do, all the memories that you store, like that becomes your life, Right. And so that record, I'm gonna release that in the coming weeks. I'm gonna let Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 marinate, but then the follow up to Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 is kind of this like all encompassing reflective record, and then from there, most likely duck back in with like Rob and start doing some writing sessions and keep it local. I do want to. I would love to get like a new publishing deal and all of these things on my side of things that like I think would be nice to just give a little polish to everything that I've been working on independently for the last 9 years. And other than that, man, yeah, like, just for putting myself in a position to have a sustainable career and create forever and stay inspired by it is all I want. I mean, my heart breaks for Naomi Osaka, who like I'm a big fan of, and I watched her play last night and lose to Leylah Fernandez, and her press conference, and like I'm such a I admire her, and you can tell she's like struggling with the mental aspect of the sport. And I see this a lot. You really have to question your relationship with what you're doing, and she's like one of the most, if not the most talented, number 3 in the world.
Right.
And to watch what she's going through, I just can relate to it, because you got to see, like, really re-examine your relationship with your profession and ultimately a love in your life. And so same thing, man, just always examining that relationship, always taking care of that relationship and getting myself into a space where it's a healthy one. So that's what you'll see me continue to do. And I'm just appreciative of you've been supporting me for a really long time, bringing me on to Foundation Radio to kind of, talk about what's going on in my world and share what's going on with yours and the synchronicities in between the two. So thank you, man, for just listening, paying attention and support. And we need people like you,
Asher, I really appreciate that, man. I'm like I said, longtime fan. Love the new record. Can't wait to see what else comes out. Like I said, I'm going to be back in Philly in the next couple of weeks. Looking forward to coming up and linking up. Modelo's are on me going forward. But yeah, man, I'm hyped for this record. Greenhouse Effect Volume 3 is out now. Go ahead and spin it wherever you can get your records. It's everywhere. Asher Roth, thank you so much for your time as always. It is always a pleasure to have you on the show, and looking forward to having you back, man.
Pleasure, Adam. Talk soon, brother.
Sounds good, man.
Foundation Radio is hosted, recorded, and executive produced by Adam Barnard. The show is also produced by Sam Krepps. Special thanks to Greg Mead, Joe Keane, Jeff Quinn, and Dr. Ruth Almy. Our intro and outro music is produced by Dumb Ugly. Find this episode and our full archive at foundationradio.net. Follow us on Instagram at foundation_radio. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your favorite podcasts. This has been a Foundation Radio production. Butts Carlton, proprietor.